Let's take a quick look at intervals where the graph is constant now. So for constant functions, if we take it back a couple lessons ago, constant functions are basically just horizontal lines or something like this as well. So for these graphs, we want to look at horizontal movements with the same key principles of reading the graph from left to right. So here, when we begin reading the graph or scanning the graph, we see that we have a horizontal movement. So this one is going to represent where the function is constant. So let's go ahead and highlight this in red. And now we have a jump here at 5. But as soon as we keep extending the graph, you see that now it's increasing, and we are no longer interested in increases. We're interested in constant movements. So here, let me draw the breaks here. So our constant movement is going to end at -5, and it begins, since we have an arrow here, it begins from a direction of -infinity. So from -infinity to -5, let's write that using interval notation. So we have -infinity to -5. This is the interval where the function is constant. So let's view one final example to wrap up this lesson. And again, we are considering the places in which the graph is constant. So let's begin on the left. So as we begin to scan to the right, we see an increase. And then beyond this point here, we see that the function is constant. So let's go ahead and highlight this in red. And as we continue, you can see that the graph is increasing again. And then past this point, we see another constant interval. So let's highlight this one in red as well. And now scanning the last section, we can see a decrease. So we can ignore that part because we're only considering where the graph is constant. So drawing the breaks here, we can see that this constant interval begins at -5 and then it ends at -3. And then for the second constant interval, we can see that it begins at -1 and then it ends at +5. So representing the constant interval, and here in this case it's intervals, using interval notation, we would write -5 to -3 union -1 to +5. And that wraps up this lesson.